Friends of Seriously, you've no doubt noticed that we've been away from the show for the past few weeks. We wanted to let you know what's happening and bring you up to speed. Just a few days ago, my co-host here on Seriously, Supriya joined me on my daily talk show, Real Talk, to address a very real and immediate health emergency that her family is facing.
The reason why the people haven't seen my face around and, I've been kind of off of social media the last little bit is because recently my husband was diagnosed with cancer and it's stage 4 lung cancer. He is 40 years old. He has never smoked a day in his life. And it is obviously a very big shock for our family. And so, you and I haven't been having our chats, I guess, as regularly and as frequently as we were and as I think we'd like. But I think for any normal human being, they would completely understand why I've sort of tapped out of public commentary right now, because my focus is, of course, my husband and our daughter. And just trying to get through this time. Yeah.
So you said you might break out into tears. I might break out into tears just because this is like in the conversations that you and I have had off of the air and off the record, just friends talking to each other. Obviously, there's a huge element of shock. And we feel this, and Johnny feels this, and our team is feeling this. So I can't imagine how you feel. By the way, want to let people know that you said you were like, let's hop on Real Talk on Friday and get everybody up to speed and just let everyone know that what's happening with Seriously, which is that the show is fine, but we're going to go on a bit of a hiatus because we're prioritizing what's important, and you need your strength and your energy to be with your man and to be with your beautiful little girl and the rest of your family. As we're talking about this, though, your willingness to come on the show today, I want to let you know that if you ever kind of like lose the appetite to talk about it, we can just wrap it up. So, and I would have said this
our
to you. Our
safe word can be tippy toe.
Or you just put your laptop down and we'll take the hint. So, stage 4, obviously, it's a bit of a different circumstance than something being detected early. How did it wind up on a Noop's radar? How did this come about? This was pretty recently.
Yeah. So he has an autoimmune condition. And so he sees a pulmonologist pretty regularly. And they do, from time to time, scans on his lungs. And in September, they found a small growth. And for whatever fucking reason, they decided that they were going to wait 3 months basically to see what the rate of growth was. So they did. It grew. Then they did a biopsy. And then in January, it came back. It was cancerous. Then he had to get like a bunch of scans done, right? An MRI and a PET scan. Those showed that it had metastasized to different areas of his body, and that what we were dealing with was going to be stage 4. And I mean, one thing I will say that's been very surprising to me about this entire situation is that you get these like absolutely devastating, pathology or radiology reports, and there's no medical guidance. You don't have any conversation with like a physician or a healthcare provider or a professional right away. They just kind of show up on your online portal. And I mean, it's not the best getting these reports without a conversation with a doctor or a nurse or somebody that can guide you through this. And I mean, like I'm pretty medically literate, right? I think I've mentioned this to you before. I have a weird amount of doctor friends in my immediate circle that I can sort of lean on pretty regularly. But if you don't have that, and if let's say English isn't even your first language, I can't imagine what other families go through when they get these sorts of things. And I don't know, it's in terms of like psychosocial support or like mental health support, like that's like virtually non-existent. And my husband's getting treated at arguably the best cancer center in the country, right, at Princess Margaret Hospital in Toronto, top 5 or something like that in the world. And it's very, very difficult to navigate caregiver support or patient support. I've been looking into like how exactly I should be framing the sort of thing to my daughter.
Yeah.
And it's hard.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. And there's no guide. I guess, first of all, can I just say, this is probably going to be obviously the most personal chat that you and I have ever had in front of other people. And so I just hope that these names mean something. These are real people that are sending you messages in our live chat right now. These are real human beings that are watching right now. They're typing. There's emojis of hearts and the hands together in prayer, and people like Jason and Sharon and Artemis and Kathy and Tracy and David, Sharon and Rose. I mean, they're all sending their love to you. And I'm sure that your family has been, I know that you guys have a support network like most people do, but that doesn't necessarily mean that everybody knows how to navigate it. And there's so many personal elements to this. With this story, your husband's age, like number one, the fact that you have a young daughter, these are things that all demand consideration with regards to like unique coping tools. One of the first things I thought of was that in our past conversations, you and me talking about the Ontario's most recent election, for example, you were banging the drum, demanding more talk on healthcare the entire time. The cruel irony of that is not knowing at the time, about the fight that your entire family was about to embark on, right? And now, obviously, unfortunately, it goes without saying, and in a tragic sense, you have this front row seat, this cruel reality of some of the challenges that people encounter navigating the healthcare system when quite literally someone's going to be fighting for their life.
Yeah, totally. And I do want to say, the oncologists that we've met with have been absolutely wonderful. And his healthcare team right now is, just stellar. They answer all of our questions. I come always with a gajillion very dumb questions in a lot of cases. And they're very patient and very understanding. But, there was his initial meeting with this thoracic surgeon. And like, it was just so ridiculous because this was like the first meeting we've had since obtaining the PET scan results, right? And like, it indicated it was stage 4. I knew that because I know how to read. But the surgeon was trying to end the appointment with my husband without clearly communicating at all what stage his cancer was, or that there was no surgical solution. And I mean, it took me 30 seconds of reading his PET scan results to know that there was not really going to be a surgical solution here. And then when I pointed out to the surgeon that he was, effectively ending the meeting without clearly communicating anything to my husband, he got super defensive and told me, and this is a quote, "I get that you're an emotional wife right now, but you only have one patient to look after for your husband. I have dozens and dozens of patients to think about right now." And I was just like, okay, is that the kind of thing you should probably be saying to, a young couple? And I was completely respectful. I just wanted to ensure that my husband had the information coming to him from a medical professional, and, not me kind of gleaming together what I thought it was based on my own understanding, as well as like input from, friends of mine in a group chat.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You don't want to be sort of like, plotting out, or at least, gleaning your understanding of a situation, plotting out your family's game plan from WebMD or something.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Something like this. I think the very first comment in the entire live chat we started talking was "fuck cancer," and this is because have you ever you meet a lot of people that would never use the F word until they're talking about cancer, and then they'll put that bumper sticker on their car because it has impacted almost everybody in different ways. This is impacting you in a viscerally personal way. This is not the way that it's supposed to go, right? But people here are sharing their personal experiences. Aitken here in the live chat says our healthcare system's truly broken. We have to do better. This is inexcusable, right? I mean, others are saying, Tanya, for example, says before the times of online health records, these conversations would have come via a physician. We clearly haven't figured out how to manage the change, which is an interesting observation. And she goes on to say, by the way, surgeons don't get through school for their personalities.
They do not.
You got to kind of be careful. I say this all the time to my lawyer friends with a chuckle. It's not fair for us to paint entire professions as having one personality trait or as being one type of person. But in a lot of industries, and I think that high achieving and very intelligent surgeons or physicians would be an example. It doesn't necessarily come with that bedside manner. I'm not saying every doctor. Some of them are phenomenal. We're going to talk to Shazma Mithani, an ER doctor, next Wednesday. I mean, her communication skills are off the charts. But there's a lot that do not have that, and I think that it just goes to show. I mean, when we talk about bringing improvements to healthcare, making healthcare more personal, more empathetic. I mean, what an example! I'm not trying to rub it in. I'm just
no, not at all. But that's a very good point. And I've said this. I don't know if I've ever said this on your show, but a big problem with the way our healthcare system sort of works right now is that there's this huge sort of incredibly imbalanced relationship dynamic, right? And patients in Canada don't have a ton of rights. We don't have a ton of recourses in terms of how we hold bad, and I'm putting that in air quotes, but bad doctors accountable is virtually non-existent. And in a lot of ways, it's somewhat analogous to the way we provide oversight and accountability for cops, because it's cops investigating other cops, and often it's doctors investigating other doctors. And there's a camaraderie and there's this sort of code, I think, that's kind of sprinkled throughout the profession, in which you can draw similarities and parallels from both. And I just don't think it's a healthy sort of way to go about how we govern this very intimate relationship in a lot of ways, and a necessary one, right?
Yeah. I haven't told you this yet, just because we've kind of kept our conversations brief, because it's interesting when you're on the outside, so to speak, but it's somebody you deeply care about, like our dynamic and our friendship. By the way, some people are like, we're so glad to see that Ryan and Supriya weren't at odds. I guess that was one of the assumptions of why we weren't doing our show, but of course not. It's quite the opposite. But we've wanted to keep the focus on you. I haven't told you that a dear friend of ours, I won't say her name, it doesn't matter, but she's been diagnosed with pretty serious ovarian cancer, and she's not even 40, and it's one of those things where she is like, I would describe you and your husband. She's gregarious. She's the life of the party. She's surrounded by a circle of friends. She's a very confident person. She's very intuitive. She's a high achiever professionally, all these things. But that doesn't mean that somebody is equipped with the emotional resources or the emotional supports or the specific wherewithal that you need to hit something like this head on. And it's so important. And this is something that we're seeing here in Alberta with her, and people that are understanding how to navigate what's going to be a very serious challenge. This is the most serious challenge that she'll ever have, probably, or that she's had to this point in her life. But it's something that I think maybe in the healthcare system we take for granted. Maybe we underestimate the need for psychological supports on a physical fight. Yeah.
And it's interesting because we talk a big game, right? We talk like mental health is health, and we need supports. And, there's all these, they claim to have all these psychosocial supports. There are all these numbers you call, but you call the number and it rings and rings and rings and rings and rings and rings, and nobody picks it up. I've mentioned to my husband's care team that this is the sort of thing that we're looking for to help navigate this. And I'm positive that they've put the request through. It just, hasn't come around yet. And I understand the healthcare system is strained, and I understand, hospitals are short staffed and people are doing a bunch of things all at once. I get all that. I'm very sympathetic to the plight of the healthcare workers that are in the system on the ground right now, as it sort of collapses all around us. But I don't know. This is, it's been very difficult. And again, at the same time, I consider myself lucky. I have a friend whose sister is undergoing chemotherapy in Montreal, and her chemotherapy was delayed by 5 weeks because they're short-staffed at the hospital that she's receiving chemotherapy at. Can you imagine? This is, I don't know. It just seems like there are all these issues, and they've been simmering. And to your point, I've been banging the drum. A lot of folks have been trying to talk about this, but we just seem to be doing the same thing over and over again, which is to ignore it. And when we stop ignoring it, we just throw more cash at the problem without questioning whether or not the cash is going to solve the problem, or what the actual issues are and how we can go about improving our healthcare system substantively and have a grown-up conversation about it in a way that doesn't just, peg us or compare us to the American system.
A lot of people this is resonating with them, and are grateful, and I'm grateful that you're willing to talk about this. Michelle says healthcare is a mess in Alberta. She's talking about, says her sister couldn't get proper tests for what turned out to be ovarian cancer. Says her doctor, who happens to be a female, wound up, in our interpretation, dismissing my sister's symptoms. This is not me trying to put everyone knows my dad was a physician for 40 years. I grew up around nurses. We're not piling on professionals. We're calling spades spades. That's the role of a talk show, I think, in conversations like this, is to hold systems accountable and to conduct citizen audits, if you want to call it that. MA says the burnout rate of healthcare workers, doctors included, is through the roof right now. Mm-hmm. They have no support from government either, right?
I'm not blind to that.
No,
at
I know
all.
you're not.
Like,
Hey, speak your truth. You don't have to make any apologies. No one's asking for that. Lou says you have huge courage, Supriya, to talk about how little help you're actually getting in so many ways. Rose is asking what probably most of us are wondering. Divulge what you like. She's just wondering, where do you go from here? People care about you.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. My husband's undergoing chemotherapy and immunotherapy, as well as a pretty aggressive radiation round. So the chemotherapy has actually been put on hold momentarily while he undergoes radiation. He's had one course of chemo. Now it's just like he gets his treatment over the next 9-ish weeks, and that includes chemotherapy. And then we wait, and then we see.
Yeah. Okay. Well, listen, I hope that you're feeling I hope you can feel it in your spine. People sending love and energy and good vibes and all of the things that we say to try to convey in circumstances where our language tools are often inadequate, how much we care for somebody and for their immediate circle, for Anoop and for the rest of your family. I'm grateful that you're able to join us today, because it's just nice to see your face again and to connect with you. And obviously, we'll be here for you in whichever way you need us. And I know Real Talkers will be eager that when the time is right, we'll be able to get you back on a regular schedule. And in the meantime, your priorities are exactly where they need to be. We love you all very much. We're wishing him the very best. Back in my days, my religiously influenced days, Supriya, we used to pray for strength and wisdom for the surgeons and for the attending medical professionals. And we just wish all of that upon you and your family. We care about you very deeply, my friend.
Thanks, Ryan. I appreciate that. Talk to you soon, buddy.
Yeah, you got it. So for the time being, seriously, we'll take some time off. Supriya is going to be exactly where she needs to be, by her husband's side, with her daughter, surrounded by their immediate circle of support. We will be here, of course, offering support wherever we can. And you can be in touch with the show. If you'd like to send a message of support, you can do so to talk@seriouslypod.com. We look forward to putting this podcast back in front of you every Wednesday when the time is right. And in the meantime, one love.